Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Today I'm looking at a brand new model from EFE Rail. Today's model then is a complete surprise release. I had no idea these were on the way. They were only just announced recently and suddenly they're in stock. So they must have waited until production was complete and the models basically on the ship before they announced them. So yeah, real surprise. And the model is this. It's made by EFE Rail, or more specifically Kernow, and it's known as a propelling control vehicle, or a PCV. And I was trying to think to myself, how do I best describe what this is? And the best I can think of is it's basically a modern autocoach. So Royal Mail used these at their mail depots to remotely control trains from the opposite end to the locomotive, which is essentially what autocoaches did back in the steam era. Although of course, unlike autocoaches, these would not be transporting passengers, but rather parcels and things. And what a delightfully niche model that makes this. I mean, I've seen layouts based on sort of mail depots and things, but there can't be that many of them, can there? So such a specific niche piece of rolling stock is really, really cool to see. And it's quite impressive that Kernow justified producing these, actually. But then again, I suppose Kernow, EFE, they are known for their sort of obscure and niche models. You might not have ever expected to see the Bully Booster, let's say, or the steam rail motor, but there they were. So a pretty niche product. Like an autocoach, as much as this looks kind of like a locomotive, this is not powered, although it does have some electricals on board because it's got working lighting. So essentially this is kind of a glorified coach, and I would say it's pretty well priced as such. So the full RRP for this is £74.95 and it's available at the retailers for around £63 to £64. And if you're interested in checking these out or picking one up, I will pop affiliate links in the description for you. So to compare this with a similarly high spec coach, I guess a recent one would be the Dapol Toplight City coaches, and this costs about £8 more than that, which I think is fair enough. I mean, this is larger, it's also got lights, although I suppose it's less likely to have such a detailed interior as those Dapol Toplight Cities. So what exactly this is like, I don't know, but I'm interested to find out. So let's take a look, let's see what this is like, let's see what the quality, detail, features are like, and let's see if this is worth the money. Really looking forward to this one, and of course quite nice to have a surprise. So let's get started with the PCV. So very interesting rail vehicles, and I will tell you a bit more about them in just a second. But for now, let me show you which version I've gone for. And yeah, label's not come out too well, has it, lads? But you can just about make out this one is E86018, and this is one of a handful that has been produced, and one of them is weathered as well. It's a PCV, the number you can just about read, maybe 94520 is that? Looks like maybe that could be an S. Yeah, can't really work that out. Unbranded Royal Mail, and it is DCC ready with a Next 18 DCC socket. And I think I will open this up later on, see how easy it is to chip and whatnot. And just in case there was any doubt as to who manufactured this, as you can see on the back, yeah, it is another Kernow Model Rail Centre model. Blimey, they are very busy, aren't they? They actually produce, if you look at it all, quite a lot. And it seems to be getting more and more all the time. But anyway, let's look at this one. Let's open up the box and see exactly what you get inside. All right, so standard sort of packaging for a coach, I would say. And accessories have just dropped out, and we've also got some instructions. So let's take a look at these to start with. So we've got a bit of a welcome here. We've got a history as well, so that's pretty good to see with a coach. Pause and read that if you'd like to. Motor unpowered, so like I say, yeah, it is just a coach essentially, although it does have a DCC socket on board. Accessories, a little bit about the accessories, nice diagram to show you where those go. Storage, body removal, this is interesting. So you got to remove 4 screws, oh that sounds quality. Normally coaches and things are just clipped together, but this is nice to see screws. Gently prise and lift the body off the chassis, etc. And there you've got a view of the socket inside, so not much to this, of course, electrically, but nice to see a socket so that you can control the lighting on digital. Look at this, we've even got switches, so on DC You've got 2 dip switches which allow you to switch between daylight and nighttime modes. Very nice, bit more about that. Spare parts, etc, etc. Very nice. Full instructions for a glorified coach. That's very nice. And accessories wise, we've got these. So we've got Buckeye couplers in here in the dropped position, and then some air pipes according to the instructions, which have all been nicely painted as well, which is good to see. Okay, the model itself then, let's take a look at the, well, let's get a first impression of the decoration and finish. Let's see how this opens up. Got some interesting blobs on the packaging here, presumably to accommodate for roof furniture that's not on this example. And why won't this open? Have we got tape holding it? No, it's just a tight fit. Okay, ready? I'm going to have to unwrap it as well. Oh no, there is roof furniture. It's just the bulges on the packaging are very, very large. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, lovely finish on that. That looks quality right away, doesn't it? Okay, well, let's lift it up. Okay, so yeah, it's not dreadfully heavy, but it's about what you'd expect from a coach. And there it is, up close and personal. So right off the bat, it's outwardly a pretty simple model, isn't it? I mean, unlike a coach, it's not got loads of lining and decoration on the side, not got lots of doors and separately fitted handles and all the sort of print work. Yeah, it's a pretty simple thing. So I suppose that explains why this is relatively affordable, even though it's pretty niche. But it does seem to have been done well. The paintwork that is here looks great, and the bogies look particularly impressive, don't they? So yeah, possibly the most unusual rail vehicle I've looked at this year, although maybe I have looked at more unusual than this, but it's certainly one of the most sort of niche, isn't it? So anyway, a bit of background on these in real life, and then we'll take a much closer look at this model and what it's got to offer. The PCV, or Propelling Control Vehicle, was introduced in 1993 as a way to improve efficiency of mail trains at Royal Mail hubs. These vehicles, which were converted from old Class 307 EMU driving cars, would sit at the rear of a train, the opposite end to the locomotive, and allow the train to be controlled remotely from the back end, much like the old Autocoaches of the Great Western, as I've been saying. This allowed trains to be safely released from a siding backwards without the need for an additional locomotive. The units were also used to carry parcels too, hence the large size of them, and the roller shutter doors on the sides allowed these to be loaded and unloaded. The vehicles were only used for about 10 years until 2003, when EWS operated Royal Mail services came to an end, making them surplus to requirements. Of 42 built in total, 24 have been scrapped, 2 have been officially preserved, which is good news, and the rest remain in storage, with their futures presumably a little bit uncertain. So here it is, a close look at Kernow's brand new PCV, which, yes, is just one switched letter away from PVC, and as such I keep wanting to call it that. So if and when I do slip up and call it PVC instead, I do apologise, and I do realise this is not a length of plastic pipe. But anyway, here it is, and it is fairly lightweight actually. It weighs in at 140 grams, which is about 25 grams lighter than a Hornby Mark III, and it's even about 25 grams lighter than the much shorter Dapol Toplight City coaches. And the difference is that these Toplights have the die-cast chassis, and the PVC nearly did it, has the plastic chassis, which is absolutely fine. I don't think it needs a die-cast chassis, and I think for something so niche that would have put the prices up significantly. But it does mean that when you hold this, it does feel a bit light and plasticky compared with some pieces of rolling stock. But the manufacturing quality here is absolutely superb. It is very, very nicely made. Nothing out of place, no glue, no wonky parts, no fluffing in the decoration. It is a very, very precisely made piece of rolling stock. And even though, you know, this prototype is not something that I've pored over, and I can't say I'm as interested in this as I am other pieces of sort of older rolling stock, I just thoroughly enjoy having this because of how nicely made it is. And you'll see that as we look around the model. Let's talk about decoration then. So as you can see, yeah, this is a pretty simple affair in terms of decoration because most of the side of the model is just flat and unprinted. But what is here has been done well. So the joins between the different colours, very, very sharp and precise. We have got the orange line between the body and the roof colour, Again, very nice and precise. We've got the running number here, which is 94320. And yeah, reading the box, I would never have guessed that what looked like an S was actually a 3, but there you go. Yep, that is the number. A really nice decorated effect is this kind of metal effect on the bottom of the roller shutters here. That looks super, and all the little handles and such have been picked out as well, so that they look incredibly detailed. The underframe has a fair bit of painted detail, including these warnings on the battery box. Yeah, very, very nicely printed. Some printing on the ends as well, as you can see, nice and precise. And the front end as well has the running number printed on too, as well as a fair few other prints. Detail wise, again, in some ways this is quite simple, in other ways it's relatively complex. The bogies, for instance, are pretty complex because, as you can see, there's a fair bit of printed detail on those. And on the front bogie, we've got this separately fitted wire, which is not connected to the chassis for obvious reasons. But I do think that this wire / pipe is a bit too long, because if I put this on a flat surface and turn the bogie, you can see that it still fouls against the chassis. So not brilliantly refined that. I don't know if mine's just not fitted straight or something, but yeah, if I see any derailments on curves, first thing I'm going to do is cut that a little bit shorter. The underframe though is very impressive. All of this is made of plastic, but we've got the full underframe structure here. Brake rigging, which is very detailed actually. Yeah, you can tell that this is a brand new design, fresh from the tool room. Really, really nice looking down here. Here's a look at the doors, and most of the detail here is just moulded. So the door handle, as is usually the case, that is just moulded, very, very precisely painted though. And then the handrails either side of the doors, again, these are just a part of the moulding, which is strange because the handrails on the front end, as you can see, are wire and separately fitted, but these are not. And they are connected to the body in 3 places, as you can see, which maybe would have complicated things if they were just using wire. But they have been done very nicely. They do actually look pretty convincing, I would say, and the precise paint on those actually does make them stand out pretty nicely. Also, look at the quality of the painting around the window frames here. That looks absolutely awesome. Again, very nice and precise. The front end is definitely where most of the detail is. So we've got sprung buffers, which are just plastic, I believe, but still, sprung buffers on a coach, not a bad sign at all. And then we've got these wires, all of these are separately fitted. Lamp brackets, which have a couple of different colours to them, very, very nicely separately fitted. These are the lights, which I believe will work on this model. That's another great feature. And even the wipers on the front end here, these are separately fitted and not just a part of the glazing moulding. So very high spec in terms of detail. Plus, we've got a detailed cab interior, which does have the sort of gauges picked out and such. So as much as this doesn't have the full interior that you'd expect from a coach, with sort of luggage racks and seats and that, what interior you can see has been done very nicely. So that's impressive. And then up on the roof, I think most of the detail here is just a part of the moulding, so the vents and such. Yeah, just moulded, but they look absolutely fine. And as you can see, there is a fair amount of detail across here as well. So, like I say, a very, very nicely made coach. Couple of things that aren't the greatest. Yeah, that bit of wire on the bogie there, that might be an issue. The other thing is that you can see the pickup shoes, for want of a better term, behind the axle boxes there, because they're a kind of bright and brassy colour. So perhaps if they'd been blackened, they'd be a bit subtler. And you can also see where power is passed up into the chassis as well. Yeah, they're quite visible. Bit of blackening would have really fixed that. Otherwise though, good quality, lots of detail here. I think anybody looking for one of these would be perfectly satisfied by this. So with that, let's get this onto the track. Let's check out the lighting, let's see how it performs, and also let's find out how easy it is to access the innards so that you can chip this or control the lighting. So here is today's test setup then, just the 2 vehicles. I've chosen the Class 47 to haul the PCV today, but because I want to test all the lights first, I've left that back in a siding for the time being. Now obviously in real life these trains would consist of more than just a locomotive and this, but I don't have any matching parcel vehicles, so I thought I would just run the PCV with the loco instead of sort of adding passenger coaches into the mix, which would have just looked a bit weird. So we'll test the lighting in just a second, but first of all let's talk a bit about the tech specs. So in terms of couplings, we've got kinematics, which have a good smooth range of motion to them. I'll test how these work in just a second. In terms of picking up, as I've already alluded to, this thing works through the axles. So the axles themselves sit into sort of bearings, if you like, and these bearings are actually punched out of metal. So they're not as sort of smooth or precise as the proper turned bearings are, and as a result the PCV is not that free rolling. I mean, it's a lot better than it would be if it had sort of wiper pickups. It would be stiff as anything then. But yeah, it's not as free rolling as we've seen from some coaches. I suppose the lightweight of it could have an impact on this as well, because it's not picking up loads of momentum. But yeah, that's how this picks up power, and then of course the two wheels have to be insulated with these plastic tubes, which is why the axles appear to be plastic, although they are metal at the ends, of course. Okay, removing the body is surprisingly simple. We've got just 4 screws. These are self-tapping screws, so no proper threads or anything like that, but realistically this is not something you're going to have to open up very often, so I suppose we can give them a pass on this. Okay, in terms of the interior then, here is how power is passed from the bogies to the chassis. We've got this little bit of spring metal which touches the punched metal part, and we've got 2 of those for each bogie. And here is all the electronics there is inside this thing, including a 10 amp relay. What is this doing here? I mean, what heavy load is this switching that the decoder wouldn't be able to manage? Maybe this is going to be doing something on analog? I don't know, but I've never seen anything like that before. That's very strange. And then of course here we've got the Next 18 socket, and if you decide to chip this, then obviously you can control the lighting on digital. But I've not done that today. This time I'm just going to be testing this on analog. So with that, let's put some power to this and see what this looks like. So just set a direction forwards. Here comes the juice. There we go, nice and simple. So we've got the headlights coming on in the forwards direction there. Let's flick direction, and there we've got it, working tail lights. All of this, of course, controllable on DCC as well. And I have seen that there is a cab light in here, but that won't work on analog. So if you want to use that, you got to chip it. But yeah, that's the lighting. It's very simple, of course, but it's absolutely all it needs to be. So with that, let's pull the Class 47 out of the siding, and let's attempt a coupling. Right, so the points are open. Let's bring this forward. Hopefully we'll get a good coupling here. Let's see. Let me move you a bit closer first, actually. Okay, see if I can do this steadily. Yep. Well, it's got it. Looks like the Bachmann coupling has actually lolled over to one side, but the Kernow one, the EFE one, was fine. And yep, they do seem to be staying coupled there. Looks good. So yeah, this is a weird looking train, isn't it? But with that, let's send this off around the track with the Class 47 propelling the PCV, and hopefully it will all be fine around the curves. Okay, let's get started. All right, nice and steady. Right, is that bogie going to behave itself around the curves with that bit of wire or pipe work in the way? Well, there's the second radius, and it's not derailed, so I would say, yeah, it's not putting up enough resistance to cause a problem. Obviously, depending on how yours is adjusted, you might hear it clicking and stuff as it goes around curves. So even if it's not derailing, you might want to snip it down a bit just so that it doesn't irritate you half to death. But in terms of performance, it's absolutely fine. It's free rolling enough so that it's easy to propel or haul. And the lighting looks great. It runs along without wobbling or anything like that. Performance seems absolutely fine. But what's it like over points? Let's give that a test. Okay, hopefully this will go without issue. I've not checked the gauging, but unless there's an issue with the gauging, I can't see any reason why this should have trouble. So here we go, in reverse to start with. Red lights coming on, looking good. Yeah, not even a snap or a click. Absolutely fine. Forwards, this is the tricky one. Being propelled. Yeah, absolutely perfect. Couplings working fine. Doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the gauging then if it's done that without a problem, so I won't bother checking that. Yeah, absolutely fine on performance. So with that, let's have a few ratings. And my temptation was to give this 5s across the board because it is quite impressive. But of course, if I'm going to put this into the ranking and if it's going to make sense, I have to try and think about what other models offer and then rate this accordingly. So it may seem that I'm being a little bit harsh at times here, but I'm doing that so that you can compare the different items I review. So level of detail I think was very close to a 5, but I am just giving it 4.5. So it looks amazing. The fact that this has got working lights is really good to see. Massively detailed cab, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. Things like sprung buffers, quite a few separately fitted parts, great decoration. Yeah, it's very, very good. However, we've got the odd moulded detail, such as the roof furniture, which doesn't stand out quite as much as it otherwise might, and also the moulded handrails beside the doors. Also, it doesn't come with any crew or anything like that. It doesn't have opening doors. You don't need these features, but some models have them, and those are the models that get 5 on detail. Performance, again, I've given 4.5. There's meaningfully nothing wrong with the performance here. It runs perfectly smoothly over points and curves. It's relatively free rolling, but we've seen better. So again, I can't give this a perfect 5, but it's very, very close. Also, couplings, not an issue with those either. Quality, so on the plus side, the quality of the build is very, very good. I didn't see a single instance of visible glue, no issues with the decoration, build quality very, very good. It is, however, slightly light and plasticky. The only real metal on board are the wire handrails, the wheels, and a metal weight sitting on top of the chassis. Everything else, for the most part, is just plastic. And that does make it feel pretty light compared with coaches such as Dapple's Top Light City coaches, and it's still quite a bit lighter than similarly sized coaches such as the Hornby Mark IIIs, and even the Hornby Mark IIIs are mainly plastic. So again, not a massive quality issue, but compared with what else is out there, there are slightly better quality models, but the quality is certainly not a problem. Value for money then, well, obviously you have to consider that this is a relatively niche product, but at the same time, my ratings don't really care about that. I'm just interested in what you actually get for your money and how it compares with other products. So I think the full RRP of £74.95 is a little bit pricey for this. So I'd give that 3 star. I think the retailer price of £63.70 is obviously much better. I'd give that 4. So I've split the difference and given it 3.5 star. Yeah, I think if you do compare this in terms of value to what else is out there, particularly the Dapple Top Light City coaches, which had a lot more interior detail, they were a lot heavier, better quality construction, that kind of thing, and significantly cheaper by about £8. Yeah, I don't think this is quite as good a value as those, but again, for a niche product that is well done, I don't think there's anything really too wrong with that price. So that is 8.15 out of 10, or a grade of C, which I think does seem a little bit harsh. And for the record, I think this is totally fine for what it is, but if it was going to get an A, I'd want to see higher quality construction, maybe some die-cast on the chassis, and maybe a few extra features like crew, opening doors, etc. These features are not necessary, but some models do have them, so I have to reflect that. Into the logbook we go then, and it is 5th, so it's cracked the top 5. It's above the Hornby Mark IIIs and below the TTA. Yeah, this is a brand new release and it's been done really, really well. I suppose the chances of you wanting to model something with this are fairly slim, but there are those out there who will be very excited by these, and if you're somebody who could use one, I could highly, highly recommend this. It's been very, very nicely executed, as is the case now quite often with Kernow products. So I don't know how many reviews this has been now from Kernow/EFE, where I've been very, very impressed. But it's safe to say that things are so much better now than they used to be with this manufacturer. I mean, I'm thinking back to when all they would really produce would be ex-DJM models and that kind of thing. They just weren't very good. They were below a lot of other manufacturers' outputs. Their latest stuff though, the Great Western Rail motor, the bloater fish fans, what was the other one, the booster, the EFE Rail booster, a lot of their recent releases have been absolutely fantastic. Their prices have been better, the quality is up, the performance is up. What a manufacturer to watch now, really kind of competing with the big boys in a serious way. So yeah, I love this, really impressed by it. Please do comment down below and let me know what you think about it. And if you are interested in one of these, I've got affiliate links in the description. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you again very, very soon for another review. All right, cheers folks, you take care.